The Tudors, potentially the most well-known British royal family in history. In this video, we cover the final ruler from this tumultuous household, who also reigned for the longest. Join me as we learn about an intelligent leader who fended off boat attacks whilst also leading the charge of the exploration of the New World. Our final Tudor queen, Elizabeth I. Elizabeth was the second eldest child of Henry VIII, behind her half-sister Mary, check the last video to learn about her, and her younger half-sibling Edward. Again, check the channel. Her mother was Henry's second wife, Anne Boleyn, who gave birth to Elizabeth on the 7th of September 1533. As was the standard for all royal Tudor children, Elizabeth was extremely well educated. She could speak many languages, including English, French, Italian, Spanish, Greek, and Latin. She was a smart one too. One of her teachers even said that her mind had no womanly weakness. I'm sure he meant well. What a charming, non-sexist thing to say. Elizabeth was only 4 years older than her little half-brother, Edward, so the two became very, very close. They even shared much of their education together. This is the thing about all these royal Tudor children. Even though they all had different mothers, they all had different beliefs, they were all different rulers, they all got on, well, pretty okay. Until succession to the throne came in, of course. One thing they also clashed on was, come on, get ready for it, say it with me, religion! Elizabeth and Edward followed in their father's footsteps, becoming proud Protestants. But as we know, Mary was a staunch Catholic, just like her mother. To be fair, I don't think I have to mention religion much more in this video, I hope. Henry VIII died in 1547, when Elizabeth was just 14 years old. This brought her younger half-brother, Edward VI, to the throne. This leads us on to the next part of our story. Right, I'm going to have to do a bit of a speed run through history here, otherwise we might be here for like 60 hours. So, Edward was king for 6 years until he died at the age of 15 in 1553. After this, he named Lady Jane Grey as his successor because she was Protestant, and he wanted England to continue being Protestant, so he didn't want his Catholic sibling, Mary, to take over as queen and revert back to Catholicism. This lasted for about 9 days as Mary overthrew Jane, and Mary became Queen of England for the next 5 years until she died in 1558. In that short time, she did try and take England back to being Catholic, publicly executing many people who did not convert back to the Catholic faith. Then came Elizabeth. Oh my goodness. Oh, surely that's the end of me talking about religion this video. So, on the 17th of November, 1558, Elizabeth's reign finally began. This reign lasted 45 years, ranking her joint 8th in the longest English kings and queens in history. Obviously, a lot of things happened during those 45 years, so rather than doing things chronologically, I'm going to just section things up a little bit and tell you the main points of her reign. And we will start with
1. Religion.
You know what? Let's just get it out of the way. As I've mentioned before, Elizabeth was a Protestant like her father and her half-brother Edward. Because of this, Elizabeth wanted to get rid of all of the stuff that her predecessor, Mary I, had put into place. Catholic stuff. However, she made changes to religion in a much more civilised way to her Protestant-hating half-sister, Mary. Don't get it twisted. Liz still wanted her kingdom to be Protestant. But if you were loyal to her and practised your religion quietly, well, she didn't mind. Initially, anyway. This tolerance was wiped away in 1569 when a large group of Catholics tried to start an uprising. Basically, that means they tried to kick her out of being queen. She saw it as a bit of a slap in the face, as she had let Catholics, well, just do what they want with their religion. Unlike some previous rulers, I'm looking at you, Edward and Mary. It also didn't help when the Pope, who is the leader of the Catholic faith, basically put a price on her head. He said that any Catholic had the right to deprive her of her throne. Basically, this was saying, get her gone. Around this time, it was made treason to be Catholic, because Elizabeth thought that they would all want to get rid of her. Towards the very end of her reign, though, Elizabeth returned to being more tolerant with faith. Again, if you were loyal to Elizabeth, well, she didn't really care what you practiced. Right, I think I'm finally done with religion.
2. The arts.
Something a bit more jolly. Finally, the arts flourished during Elizabeth's reign. You may have heard of a little playwright called, I don't know, William Shakespeare? Well, Elizabeth was the queen during most of his life. Shakespeare's company was often asked to go and perform for her, so she definitely was a fan of his work. As well as Shakespeare, famous creatives such as Christopher Marlowe and Edmund Spenser and others were free to be creative with their poetry and playwriting. This truly was a golden age for the arts. In this time, many theatres started to be built. This is where wealthy people could enjoy lavish performances of all the latest dramas.
3. Exploration.
At this time, a lot of countries in Europe got bored of ruling its own shores, so they decided to go exploring to find new places to exploit and benefit from. Although we can look back at the horrors from the other side now, it was seen as wildly exciting at the time. Lots of undiscovered places to learn and steal from, yay! I'm not going to lie, the British didn't really stop doing this for the next 400 years. Some famous explorers included
Sir Walter Raleigh.
North America was discovered by his ships, although he never actually set foot there himself. He was in charge of many trips into the New World in order to bring back riches and knowledge for Elizabeth.
Sir John Hawkins.
He took people from the west of Africa and transported them to the newly found place of America and Spanish colonies in the Caribbean.
Francis Drake.
Drake was the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe. This means he sailed all around the Earth in one voyage. This took them 1,046 days, just under 3 years.
4. The Spanish Armada.
England and Spain never really got on. They were always bickering over things like land and, of course, religion. Either way, Elizabeth started to encourage the Protestants in the Netherlands, which the Catholic Spanish ruled over at this time, to revolt and rebel against their current rulers. She also organised for some British ships to go and raid some Spanish ships. For King Philip of Spain, yes, the one who married Elizabeth's half-sister Queen Mary, this was the final straw. He sent an armada, which is a large group of ships, to go and invade and battle against England. However, this wasn't successful for a host of reasons. A mixture of bad weather, strong winds, and brilliant English war tactics sent the Spanish packing back to their country empty-handed and defeated. My personal favourite attack tactic from the British is they used to set fire to their own ships and then just sail them straight into the Spanish ones. This caused fear and then ultimately panic. This victory went a long way to show how strong a ruler Elizabeth I was, saying to her troops,
"I know I have the body of a weak, feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too."
Strong words from a strong-willed woman.
4. Fashion and beauty.
In her time, Elizabeth was the absolute height of fashion, a Tudor trendsetter for all things couture. You were considered beautiful if you had pale skin, red lips and bright eyes, all things that Elizabeth happened to have. However, this image of beauty was, well, a bit of a lie. Her lips would be made red by putting vermilion on them, which we now know is toxic because it's basically just crushed up mercury. Her skin would be made pale with a mixture of vinegar and lead. Again, we now know that this mixture can be incredibly harmful. All of these horrible concoctions left a terrible, terrible mark on Liz, leaving her skin grey and damaged. I would also like to add that all these pristine portraits we see of Elizabeth were essentially a lie too. It was basically the Tudor version of Photoshop. She would completely control what the artists put in their paintings. She would get rid of some features and add in new ones to make her look more beautiful. By the end of her life though, this all took a toll. She started to lose her hair and lose her teeth, which left her loathing the image of herself. So much so that she didn't have any mirrors in her room anymore.
6. Strong independence.
Her strong will came into almost everything that she did. Her independence meant a lot to her. She trusted her judgment and she didn't want anybody else getting in the way of that. This is shown by her reluctance to marry. She wanted to rule on her own, not be overshadowed by some random man. She even went on to say that she would never marry because she was
bound unto a husband which is the kingdom of England.
The government wanted her to marry, but she never found anybody suitable, so she never gave them their wish. As a result of this, Elizabeth never gave birth to an heir. That meant that the Tudor dynasty would, well, die with her. Elizabeth I was 69 years old when she died on the 24th of March 1603, after a reign that lasted 45 years. Many now believe that she died due to blood poisoning, perhaps because of all of the horrible things she was putting on her face to create this illusion of perceived perfection. But we will never truly know, as there was never a post-mortem performed. She had no heirs, which meant that the Tudor lineage ended with her. So, who took over then? Well, that would be the King of Scotland, James I. He was made king because he was the son of Elizabeth's cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. It also helped that he was a Protestant, of course. He led Britain into the era of the Stuarts, an era that quite frankly I cannot wait to tell you about someday. So thank you for listening to me ramble about Tudor monarchs for the past 4 videos. Join me next time as we delve into a new part of history that, I won't lie, I haven't decided yet. Either way, thank you for watching Mr. D Does History, and I will see you next time.